Hello, and welcome to Red Rock Relationships, a podcast about communication. Let's unpack the relationships that we encounter in our daily lives and learn about what makes them tick. And now your host for Red Rock Relationships, Dr. James B. Stein.
All right. We are hanging out in the booth and getting closer and closer to the season finale of season 2. And as we approach that ending, a couple of things that I want to announce really quickly. Over the summer, we're going to be looking to do a couple of, I guess we're going to call them roundtables. We'll double the time that we normally do, and we'll have some previous guests on to basically just do some rapid fire questions. We're going to do one all about the warm and fuzzies and cuddlies and sexy time and stuff like that. And I think we're going to do another one with some of the folks who approach non-binary issues in the communication community. So those should be fun. More info on that later will be available to you on our social media. But we have other stuff to talk about first. Specifically, we need to finish this season up, and so it is my absolute pleasure to be joined by two guests who I'm actually in here in person with. This is very exciting. So I'm pleased to welcome Jared Miller and Mandy Repko. I got it right.
Yeah,
yes,
you got
I got
it
it right. Even if I didn't, please tell me I did.
Hey, bro, I spelled it wrong the other day. You're totally fine.
That's a mistake.
I spelled it Rekko, right? Was that?
You spelled it R-E-K-P-O.
Yeah, so it's totally fine. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
Repko.
So, and then she takes a picture of it, right? And she sends it to her family. Like, does he know me well enough for me to marry this guy?
Oh no,
I'm making enemies before the vows are even complete.
Yeah, they all laughed.
Let's see if we can sort out some of those soon-to-be marital issues on this show here. Although we don't need this turning into like a Jerry Springer situation, so maybe we should avoid that. But
I thought that's what I signed up for.
Well, we'll see where it goes. If we get bored enough, maybe we can take it there. But this is exciting because you're my first in-person guests, of course. Not only has coronavirus complicated things from a podcast standpoint, but most of my guests are located in crazy parts of the country, and y'all are right here close to home. So it's really good to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. I'm super grateful to be asked to come on. I love the podcast, love what you're doing. It's pretty cool. Like, the one thing I am going to say, though, is I can't believe you're a doctor. You have your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, were you taking college courses in junior high? You look young to me.
I just exfoliate.
Oh, okay.
I take care of myself. You should see how I look. I recently downloaded TikTok, and they have a filter. It's called the beauty filter, and it just slightly blurs your face, just a little bit.
Okay.
And it gets rid of every blemish. And I look at that, I'm like, wow, I look like I'm 22 in there. So that's what I've been looking at instead of the mirror. It's been working well for my self-confidence. Anyway,
nice.
For those who are unfamiliar with Jared, he actually works here with Radio Dixie and does a podcast of his own. So I'm going to ask you to talk about that in just a little bit. But before we do, I'm hoping that the two of you can just kind of tell our audience a little bit about who you are, because normally we kind of have a hoity-toity, fartsy-partsy, another PhD in here to talk about an area of expertise. And I'm really excited to have someone who is not that hoity-toity mentality. It'll be a little more fun.
We're gonna dumb it down for you guys today. I'm surrounded by two very educated people. I got street smarts, so that's about it. Obviously, you can tell I can't spell my fiance's last name right, so
That's fine. I'm
Totally
a teacher, so doesn't that mean I failed you as a student?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Don't tell my students that. They don't know. They think when they screw up, it's their fault. Okay.
It is.
So can we just hear a little bit about who you are? If you want to take this time to kind of plug your podcast, Jared, maybe we'll start with you. Just tell us, what your background is and how you ended up where you ended up.
Okay, cool. So I'm a country boy at heart, born and raised in West Point, Utah. Amazing parents, super good family, came from an LDS background. Yeah, man, I'm pretty stereotypical. I grew up playing sports. I got a football scholarship out of high school to Snow College. That's in Ephraim, Utah, for those of you listening out of state. I finished up at Snow College and got my bachelor's degree at Weber State University in kinesiology, exercise science, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, I became a teacher and coach. I was out in Arizona for several years. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. A lot of times when the fall rolls around, I miss coaching, actually. But God had a different plan for me, man. I went through some hardships within a 3-year period. I experienced the death of my dad, who I was extremely close with. childhood hero. I had my brother, who was like my best friend, really pass away. And because of all those things and what I chose, the way I chose to cope, my wife asked me for a divorce. So I went through some hardships there for a little bit. Got addicted to pain medications. Again, another very stereotypical story. Football player, was prescribed pain meds, went through some traumas, used it as a way to cope. Struggled with that for probably 3 years real heavily. Ended up at my bottom, homeless, downtown Rio Grande, Salt Lake City. Was there for a while, and July 3rd of 2014, I decided this world would be better off without Jared Miller in it. And sadly, I attempted suicide through an overdose. And as dark and as heavy as that is, I'm honestly happy, grateful for that day, because it put me on my road to recovery. God had a plan for me. And today I am able to help people that have gone through similar situations and had similar paths. And I'm very loud and very proud about the experiences that I've gone through in life. I saw a little thing on Facebook the other day. It said, trying to make me feel bad for, oh boy, I'm going to totally botch this, but here I go. Trying to make me feel bad for my past is like going to my old house and expecting for me to still live there, right? Like I'm no longer there.
Right.
And so I think what I try to do is just through my message, give other people permission to embrace the things that they're going through and seek help.
That's big. That's big, man. And we'll get to all that in just a minute here. But Mandy, top that.
Yeah, I was going to say, my story's not nearly as cool or long. So I grew up in Logan, Utah, which is total opposite end of St. George. Very normal, great childhood, nothing out of the ordinary. I played sports growing up, attended Utah State University, graduated with my teaching degree, and I teach special education now. I've been doing that for about 4 years, and I love it. Love it here.
We are a very stereotypical couple, actually. So I'm the football player, and she was a cheerleader.
Oh, wow.
I was
in high
much
school.
more stereotypical than that. Wow.
Right? Man, we were checking off some boxes here, babe. Yep. And then you were what?
I was Miss Cache Valley. Is that what you're referring to? I used to do pageants, but I didn't think that was
right.
No, that's important. That's like an identity shaping situation.
Yeah. Okay. That's true.
So Jared, you're kind of talking about like, we are kind of like, if you take a snapshot, right? Stereotypical couple. Of course, the path that the two of y'all had toward getting to each other is probably a little atypical. Am I right?
Yes.
So I kind of want to start by asking Mandy about that stuff and what that path looked like. Jared mentioned that he was in a previous relationship. Can you talk a little bit about how you two wound up meeting each other?
Yeah, well, we have both been married before, and my relationship was very unhealthy. His ended up, everything that happened with him. And we both kind of had to find ourselves and find our individuality before we even met each other. I think that was a really big part. For me, it was finding myself again and learning to be okay being alone. And that's a hard thing to accept sometimes when, you're living alone. I mean, I have my dog, but...
What kind of dog?
Shout out to Rocky.
Shout out. He's a Pomeranian.
Oh, I have a King Charles Spaniel. He's in the office right now.
Yep. So, when you're spending weekends like alone at home, it's easy to kind of feel bad about yourself or think there's something wrong with you. But when you can accept like, no, I'm awesome, I'm having fun with myself on the weekend, then I think you're in a place where you really can start to look for someone else to be in a relationship with.
Yeah, cool. You got to find your independence before you can open your heart to love again, for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because, it would be remiss to assume that y'all have both listened to every single episode of this show, but on this show, we spent a lot of time talking about just that. And it started at the end of season 1 when we had Dr. Generous on talking about self-love and self-care. We had a whole episode on the self earlier this season, and whichever guest I get always talks about like the importance of like identity and finding yourself and being comfortable with yourself. And so it's nice to hear that reiterated again and again and again, because it's very important.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that doesn't really answer the question though of like how y'all.
Oh, I skipped over that part.
Yeah, so how'd you meet?
Well, that was all on me. So we both attend the same gym. And it
No
was
way.
Yeah, it
Is
was
this a gym pickup story?
yeah, I guess another box we're checking.
Wow.
But it's a little different because I was the one that started talking to you. Right?
I smiled at first, okay?
Okay,
Okay, hang on. We were just talking about this in my nonverbal class. Okay, if my nonverbal comm students are listening, this is what we were talking about on Wednesday when we were discussing things like the importance of gaze and inviting someone else into your space. So there was some prolonged eye contact. There was some smiling.
Yes.
And then can I guess?
Yes.
Was it, hey, this is a little heavy. Can you come spot me? Was it that?
No.
I didn't even have that much courage, bro. Yeah.
No. And I don't need spotting, right?
Oh, whoa.
kidding.
Okay.
Well, I was
pretty
training for a
tough.
bodybuilding show at that point, so I was pretty tough
Okay.
back then. But we had kind of matched on Facebook dating something, and sent a message back and forth, but not very much. And he looked familiar, so I went up and I said, "I think I know you. I think I sent you a Marco Polo that you never responded to."
Okay, here's the thing, man. In my defense,
You're
okay,
just drowning in other options. Is that it?
No,
That
that's
is it.
definitely not it. In
Look
my
at your
defense, I was at the time working a full-time job. I was working a part-time job. I was doing kind of a side hustle, going and speaking at places. So I had my Marco Polo notifications off, and I never
Okay.
checked it. You
Sure.
download the app, and then you. So it's funny because she said that to me, and I was like, no way. Right? Like I didn't believe it. And then I went and checked and I was like, oh man.
Wow.
Dang it.
Almost screwed that one up.
Yeah.
Okay, so now fast forward. How long has it been?
Almost a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Fast
it'll be
forward.
a year in May.
Almost a year. We're looking at bells a ringing. So talk to me again, Mandy. Question for you, and Jared, step in whenever you feel like doing it. Talk to me, just sort of about like the energy, the collective energy that the two of you all have right now, and kind of where you are at in terms of looking forward to the future.
So our energy, I feel like there's a lot of respect between both of us. He respects my individuality, I respect his individuality, but we also work together. So I think that's probably my favorite part of our energy. I don't know. What do you think, Jared? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I can agree with that. You know, the thing I love about Mandy is she doesn't need me. Like she doesn't. She. That was the thing that really attracted me to her. Is she had a lot of self-confidence. She had a lot of. I mean, she has her act together. You know, she's a professional. So to me, I was all about, in rebuilding my life, I was about identifying healthy relationships, right? I've struggled with codependency in the past. And so I really respected the fact that she was self-willed. She was very independent. And then as far as our energy together, like she said, I feel like we complement each other very well. As you can tell, I'm outspoken and I'm very bold and I'm very like loud in your face, right? And she's very reserved and she's very thoughtful, very kind. She doesn't have to be the loudest person in the room. She's very intelligent, but she's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. And so it's kind of that yin and yang. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so she's smart, well-learned, well put together. You're a mess. It makes sense.
Yeah, she's smart and beautiful, and I'm dumb and loud. And so together,
Yeah, it's like the perfect like Oreo where
Yeah.
you got the cookie and the cream filling too. Okay, that's fun. That's fun. We like that. Now, okay, so I do want to move on here in the second half where this is sort of the part where Jared, you get to plug.
But can we do something before? though?
Yeah.
So I do have a serious concern before we get married.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
She has failed both of my trust tests.
Oh, boy.
I just want to throw that out there because it's important to be real. I feel like people need to resonate, and I don't want to come off like we're fake. She's failed both of my trust tests, James. Okay, ask her what the trust tests were.
Oh, no.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
ask.
What are these tests?
The first trust test was I was driving him to his hair appointment, and I wouldn't close my eyes and let him direct our car while I was driving our vehicle.
You're not
on a real road.
gonna let him tell you how to drive with your eyes closed.
And it wasn't even a straight road. It was a windy back road
In a
neighborhood
okay?
with houses and kids running in the
no.
street.
Again, I'm not the smartest, person in the world, but I thought this would be a great opportunity to see if she truly trusts me.
It would be a great opportunity to have your insurance rate triple. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly wasn't what I was thinking, James, but I just thought, so teasingly I said, okay, babe, let's see how much you trust me. You close your eyes. I'm going to guide you, right? Like I'm going to navigate how do I do a Siri voice? In 500 feet, turn left.
And she was not
Nailed
agreeable
it.
to this.
No.
Oh, wow. I am, color me shocked.
Right. Crazy, right? Okay, sorry. I just had to get that.
Okay, that's fair. I thought you were going to say she was a Red Sox fan, which would be my deal breaker.
Oh, yeah, no, thank goodness she's not that.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk. Are you a Red Sox fan?
No, I
Okay.
don't watch enough baseball to have a favorite team.
Better than being a Red Sox fan. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what it is that you do and the communication element in there. So you want to take a second to plug your podcast?
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. So my Facebook Facebook page where we do the podcast, and you can find it on any major podcast platform. Thanks to Sean Denovan. Look at that man sitting over there. Is We Do Recover with Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers. So, and on there, basically, we talk about, we're just trying to basically change the stigma of addiction. It's a podcast about recovery from addiction. I feel like a lot of people put power and put fear into the addiction piece, and not enough people are willing to stand up and shout from the rooftops about recovery. Like, we do recover. I mean, there are so many people out there living examples, and so we bring them in and we celebrate their recovery. We celebrate their life.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, especially since, like you said, there's a huge stigma around drug use. There's stigma around what drugs do to the body and the brain, and of course, those all come together. So, I mean, for me, the thing that I like to talk about more than anything else is the communication element here. So, I guess if you don't mind, can you talk to me a little bit about what role communication plays in the recovery process? Maybe even like from your own experience or in your experience in dealing with other people in recovery. What role does communication play there?
It's huge, right? So so just to let everybody know, I'll be a CA SUDC, right? Clinical advanced substance abuse counselor. Oh, that's a mouthful, and I got through it, James. And so in the industry, we believe in biopsychosocial, right? Your physical, psychological, or emotional, and then the social. And you're talking about the communication through the psycho and social aspect. It's huge. Like, one of the things that we tell a lot of people that are going through addiction is to reach out, right?
Yeah.
Get outside of your head, because there's a thing called stinking thinking, where if you've gotten yourself into a place where you're basically abusing a substance, doesn't matter what substance, because it's all the same. It all releases dopamine in the midbrain. You need to reach out, call a sponsor, talk to a family member, talk to a counselor, get involved in a fellowship, right? Like all those things. And so we talk about 30 and 30, going to 30 meetings in 30 days. We talk about 90 and 90, going to, hit a meeting every single day. Call your sponsor every single day. One of the things I love is I ask people, you got a sponsor yet? Yep. Have you called them? Nope. So you don't have a sponsor. Well, no, I do. No, you don't, because you're not using that sponsor. So communication's huge.
Yeah, would that make 30 and 30? That seems like, to me, it would overwhelm me and make me like, not run away, but just feel like, oh my God, like every day and I can't miss one. That scares me. So what are some ways in which you can, I guess, for lack of a better term, ease people into the idea, like help them understand that like this is not as overwhelming as you think it's going to be, and this is something that you can learn to enjoy and something that can dramatically improve your life?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. I think what overwhelms me is getting hit with Narcan 4 times and being brought back to life. Like, this isn't like a cutesy deal. This is life and death. And so 30 and 30 may seem like, holy cow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's necessary. Like, that connection is huge. And it's not really so much about the meeting necessarily. It's about making those connections. It's about rebuilding your social circles. So to ease them into it, honestly, it's like, look, don't stress out about it. Do your best, right? Like, you don't have to be perfect. Perfectionism is a character defect that we talk about. So if you miss a group one day, just double up on the weekends.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's a good way of looking at it. It kind of, I guess, relieves that pressure, because I know sometimes people use drugs to escape their responsibilities. And so, like, the last thing we want to do is be like, welcome to recovery. Here's all the things that you were running from all in your face all at once. So, and I know that that's not what the process is like, but it's good to know that that's acknowledged.
And another thing that needs to be brought up too is when you think of 30 and 30, sure, it may seem overwhelming, but we talk a lot about one day at a time, right? So how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You know what I mean? So
I've never
if you
had
just
elephant.
focus, you've never had elephant?
I've never had elephant.
Oh man,
I've had kangaroo.
Oh, okay. No, but in all seriousness, you just 24 hours at a time.
I think that's an important way to be able to look at the micro and the macro at the same time. I think that's big.
Yeah.
So one thing that, and I'm a bit naive here. So in my naivety, I see when I look up, like when I Google like tools for recovery or something like that, what I see is a lot of user-directed messages, which is good, right? Because these are the folks that we want to reach out to, and we want to make sure that they have the resources that they need to recover. What I think about are the individuals in places of support. So earlier this season, we had Dr. Coulter Ray on, and he talked about all the really helpful supporting messages that people can deliver. And he also talked a little bit about some of the dangers of being like too supported or giving unwanted support. My question to you is, as someone on the outside, if we're looking at someone who's struggling with addiction or who has maybe overcome the initial battles and is in the process of recovery, what are some messages or some ways that we can reach out to that person and allow them to understand that we are here for support and that it's like a judgment-free zone and that we're here to help? Like, how can we best help these folks?
It's a great question. So first of all, I just want to say I'm a novelist in this, right? Like, so I'm just starting out. I have life experience. Really, Dr. Terry Sellers, my co-host, would be a great guest for you to have on. And I mean, he would probably be the one to really have just flawless questions, but I'm going to do my best here.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing about this is the messages are we've got to get rid of the moral theory, right? Like the moral theory is that there's a character defect or something is morally wrong with that individual. Like if you had diabetes, would you have a problem talking to your family about having diabetes?
Right. No, probably not.
If you had cancer, would you be ashamed that you had cancer and felt like you couldn't talk to people about having cancer?
Right. No.
So we know that addiction is a disease. It's a mental health disorder. Substance abuse is a mental health disorder. So why do we stigmatize it? Why do we make it seem like people are flawed or they're, going to HE hockey sticks if they struggle with that?
Yeah.
It's the same thing if like people with depression. If you have depression, people talk all the time about depression. What meds do you take? And so we come to this place where there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of feeling like you're less than. And I just want to get rid of that. Like it's outdated. That comes from like, man, early times.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't handle your gin, you can't handle your drink. I mean, even before the Americas were set up, that's when that whole moral theory came from. Like, it's outdated, people.
Interesting.
It's 2021. You know what I mean? Educate yourself. Get the facts. Like, let's all be able to just have a conversation about
That's
it.
a good point. And it's funny that you mention the importance of acknowledging mental health, because as I'm sitting down to write the schedule for season 3, one of the episodes that I want to do is an episode on communication and mental health disorders. And so I don't know, I may have you reach out to your co-host on my behalf to see if he'd be willing to sit down and explore some of those issues. And I might couple him with a couple of the clinical psychologists who I've been lucky enough to make friends with. But that is, I think you bring up some really important notes there in terms of just talk about it. Like, let's just talk about it. Let's just have a conversation about it. Like you would talk about the food poisoning you had last month. Hey, are you feeling better? What can I do to help you?
Yeah.
Am I there? Am I on target with that, or am I off?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's something that we need to just be able to bring to light and talk about instead of sweeping it under the rug and hush, we don't talk about those things. Like, yeah, all that does is keep people sick.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're out of time. But one final thing that I'll say here is that there are other states in which those conversations are more prevalent. Out here, I think we need a little bit more of a push. And so it's really encouraging to see programs like yours and just entities like the couple that is Jared and Mandy being out there and being the ones to give that push because it's needed. And if it doesn't happen from you, no one's going to do it.
And let me just say this. My life today is better than my life was before I went through my substance abuse disorder. Like this beautiful lady that's sitting next to me, incredibly smart. Like I'm blessed today. And I've been able to, everybody could benefit from going through some kind of treatment program. I've been able to identify my character defects. I've been able to work on myself. And I feel like everybody could use that.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for your time. Next week, we're going to be on talking with the newly elected Vice President of Student Affairs about the importance of communication in peer-to-peer relationships. Looking forward to it.
You've been listening to Red Rock Relationships, a podcast about communication. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. If you'd like to be on the show or have questions for us, please send us an email to redrockrelationships@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search Red Rock Relationships. Thank you again. And remember, it all begins with good communication. This has been a production from a podcast studio.